Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we'll recap the horror movie Grace, released in the year 2009. The movie starts with a couple who wanted to have a child and were excited about it. After a few months, Madeline, who's the wife, is pregnant. There are only a few days left in her delivery. Due to Madeline's issues conceiving, she takes fertility medication. Madeline's mother-in-law is ill-mannered toward her. She tries to establish her control over Madeline, but Madeline doesn't let that happen. Madeline despises her mother-in-law. She advises Madeline to have an appointment with the doctor she wants. However, Madeline dislikes the doctor because he does not take her condition seriously. Rather than going to the hospital, the couple decides to contact a nurse midwife. Nurse midwives were once thought to be highly trained health professionals. They were hired to look after pregnant women, but they are not doctors, which bothers Madeline's mother-in-law. Regardless, Madeline hires a nurse midwife. Her husband also tells her to think about it, but Madeline persuades him and tells him to not worry. The nurse midwife, Patricia, tells them that she is trained in her profession and also assures them that the baby will be conceived successfully. They have a cat who spends a lot of time hunting rats. Madeline doesn't like the cat because she believes that even though they give it tasty food, it still hunts rats. Madeline experiences chest pain following a meal. Her husband takes her to the doctor because he's concerned. Her mother-in-law knows the doctor who treats her. Madeline does not think he is a good doctor, and her husband feels the same way when he starts to treat her. They forbid the doctor from treating her, but he refuses. Madeline's husband contacts Patricia. After receiving the call, Patricia arrives at the hospital and informs the doctor that Madeline is her patient and requests that he discontinue treatment. Madeline and her husband are on the way to return home late at night. All of a sudden, the car gets in an accident, due to which Madeline's husband dies. Madeline loses a lot of blood and is severely injured. She asks for help from Patricia. She takes her to her home. However, she's unable to properly treat her and realizes that it is necessary to take her to the hospital due to her critical condition. However, she is aware that Madeline is unwilling to go to the hospital and that the unborn child died in the tragic incident. Madeline was breathing with the dead body and had no idea of what was going on. But the nurse midwife keeps it a secret from her because she had only recently lost her husband. Madeline longed to see her baby as the baby was about to come. After some time, Madeline delivers the baby with difficulty despite being in severe pain. When Patricia sees the baby, she starts crying because the baby was already dead. Madeline takes her baby in her lap and repeatedly asks her to come back. The baby comes back to life, surprisingly. Patricia is shocked by the unbelievable. Madeline smiles, looks at her baby, and names her Grace. Patricia finds it strange because she was aware that the baby had died several days ago, so she suggests Madeline go to the hospital and get a medical exam for herself and the baby. Madeline refuses to do so. After a few months, Madeline raises baby Grace at her home. On the other hand, her mother-in-law is heartbroken and depressed after losing her son. She hates Madeline even more now and is psychologically disturbed by her son's death. She decides to raise a baby, so she decides to bring her granddaughter and raise her. Madeline, on the other hand, has gotten mentally weak. She brushes Grace's hair. Madeline loses track of time and continuously brushes her hair, causing her hair to break. Grace's head also gets injured. While showering Grace, she also injures her. Flies were always around Grace, and Madeline despised them. The next day, Madeline wraps a net around Grace to keep the flies away. But flies were still near her, and they were strangely drawn to her. Madeline breastfeeds Grace, but she doesn't drink it and takes it out of her mouth. Because of this, Madeline had begun to worry about Grace. She hadn't been fed in several days. Madeline has an assistant who relayed messages to Patricia. She was Madeline's only friend. However, even she is unable to help her because Madeline's assistant does not relay her messages. On the other hand, Madeline's mother-in-law is plotting to steal her granddaughter. Madeline eventually realizes that Grace is harming her. Rather than feeding on milk, she's feeding on her blood, but ignores it because she cares about her and did not want to lose her. As a result, she allows her to do so. She realizes that Grace is not a normal baby and digests and fills her appetite with blood. Later, Madeline notices raw meat in the grocery store. She buys it so she can give its blood to Grace to satisfy her hunger. She returns home, takes out all the blood from the raw meat, and pours it into the feeder. But Grace starts vomiting again. Madeline realizes that Grace can only digest human blood. She becomes ill after not having any blood for several days. Madeline cannot tell anyone as they might take Grace's custody or kill her if they found out. Madeline notices her pet cat bringing dead rats to Grace. Even the cat appears to be aware of Grace's blood-feeding habits. Madeline's mother-in-law plots to prove Madeline is mentally ill and seek the help of a doctor to get custody of her granddaughter. Madeline begins to weaken. She no longer has a clear vision. She trembles and shivers. The doctor comes to her house the next day, as requested by her mother-in-law. Madeline asks for help from the doctor without disclosing her injuries and says nothing about Grace. While inspecting Madeline, the doctor hears the terrifying sound of Grace weeping. Hearing the terrifying sound of a small baby makes the doctor feel uneasy. Despite Madeline's disapproval, the doctor goes to Grace. Madeline strikes his head and the doctor collapses. Madeline suddenly considers giving the doctor's blood to Grace. She fills the feeder with his blood after tearing his body apart with scissors. She starts feeding Grace with this blood. Grace drinks the blood with pleasure. Madeline hides the doctor's dead body in the restroom. The situation had worsened, and Madeline had gone insane in her love for her daughter. The mother-in-law gets ready to bring her granddaughter. She is confident that the doctor she sent would complete the job and that she would soon be with her granddaughter. She also decorates the kid's bedroom. When the doctor does not return after a long time, she goes to Madeline's house. Madeline is busy disposing of the doctor's body. After getting there, the mother-in-law takes Grace as well as a hammer. Madeline returns, but Grace is nowhere to be found. She sees her mother-in-law, who's leaving with Grace, on the stairs. Madeline begs her to return her daughter, but she refuses. She slams a hammer into Madeline's head. Madeline collapses, but survives. Madeline wakes up, cuts her throat as she approaches, and smashes her head with the hammer. Patricia arrives, concerned about Madeline. She notices Madeline and her mother-in-law lying on the floor. In the last scene, Patricia takes Madeline and Grace somewhere. They're in a camper bus. Patricia pulls over to check on Madeline and Grace, who appear to be fine. Madeline tells her that medical exams have confirmed that Grace is as healthy as she appears. Madeline, on the other hand, is preoccupied with something else. She tells Patricia that Grace has matured and has begun teething. She then removes her top, showing that Grace has begun eating her flesh along with the blood. The movie concludes. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more movie recaps. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.